This week, we got a front row seat into how some in the media deceptively edit content to fit a narrative. The late Ruth Bader Ginsburg has a long list of achievements stemming from her service to the Supreme Court of the United States from 1993 until her death in September last year. In 2016, veteran US journalist Katie Couric interviewed Ginsburg on the issue of football players who kneeled during the national anthem. This is what Couric published at the time.
If they want to be stupid, there's no law that should be preventive. If they want to be arrogant, there's no law that prevents them from that. What I would do is strongly take issue with the point of view that they are expressing.
Strong words, but seemingly measured. Few would argue that you can legislate against stupidity. Fairly uncontroversial statements. But 5 years later, Couric has released a book where she admits to editing out some comments which shed more light into Ginsburg's thought process. In reality, Ginsburg said the following: the protesters showed a, quote, contempt for a government that has made it possible for their parents and grandparents to live a decent life, which they probably could not have lived in the places they came from. As they became older, they realised this was youthful folly. And that's why education is so important. So why did Couric see fit to cut these comments? Well, she says she wanted to protect Ginsburg from backlash and protect her image. That is not the role of any journalist. And a person who has the intellectual depth to serve on a Supreme Court does not need any help massaging their thoughts. There was absolutely nothing wrong with Ginsburg's comments other than the fact that Couric herself thought they were controversial. But this is how the media controls the narrative. Even some of the most celebrated progressive icons get censored if they dare have an independent thought. Caleb, this is such an interesting case because we're talking about somebody who is, by all definitions, an icon for progressive movements throughout her entire career, and she's being censored because she didn't say exactly what the journalist thought was politically correct.
I know, I wouldn't dream of doing it. And to be honest, this offends me from a few angles. One, from the fact that she has admitted that she censored Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I have absolutely no idea why you would admit to doing something like that. You just make yourself look like a fool. But the fact that she did it in the first place. Now, you know, as a journalist, I mean, look, everyone knows where I stand politically. That's not to say that all of my opinions fall on the same side of the fence as all of my other opinions, but people have a general idea of where I sit personally. But when I am talking to someone for an interview, as any other interviewer does, you look for that line, you look for that kernel that you can hang the interview off, the most interesting line in the interview. I mean, isn't that what we do as journalists? Now, clearly, in this case, what Ruth Bader Ginsburg was saying was the most interesting line of that interview. The fact that it is controversial is what makes it interesting. And I cannot understand why any journalist of any stripe would want to downplay the possible controversy or the possible interest in an interview because they're worried about the backlash that the subject of their interview might receive. I mean, it's not like she'd just gone and pulled some bum off the street and was filming them saying all manner of, you know, racist, sexist, whatever things, and then just going to publish it on television so they can be kicked around like a football. She's talking to a public figure. Why would you censor someone like that? Clearly, Ruth Bader Ginsburg said this because she wanted people to know it. And for a journalist to go to the length of censoring the most interesting comment in an interview because she's personally worried about how someone like Ruth Bader Ginsburg is going to be able to deal with it, it just goes against every journalistic principle I can think of.
Yeah, and Caroline, he makes some really good points there. I guess it shows that some of these issues, they're not black and white. There is a nuance, a grey to it. And to me, it's really disheartening to see journalists take out some of that more interesting, thought-provoking commentary behind these issues because it falls outside of the narrative.
Sure, and then you wonder why there's a why there's a trust gap between the people and the media. When these sorts of examples are put out there, this really does upset people because it flies in the face of the whole fair and accurate thing. And in her book, the way she tries to justify this blows my mind. It's almost as bad as censoring the interview itself. And she says that she doesn't think, she wanted to protect Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but she doesn't think she understood the question, which quite frankly is so offensive. And I don't share the same politics as either the journalist or Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but as a Supreme Court judge, that there is just such an abhorrent thing to say. And getting to that point on the Supreme Court, she hears things which would lead to, or she makes decisions which would lead to backlash every day in her job. That's what her job was to do. So she understands public sentiment, or she understood, public sentiment, and she understood that some things would upset other people. That didn't stop her from saying that. If she can sit there and preside over constitutional matters and other very serious and complex topics, I think she understands a question about footballers kneeling before football games.
Yes, look, it doesn't matter where you sit on the political aisle. She was an incredibly intelligent, sharp woman.
Absolutely.
She understood the question. I wonder if maybe the journalist didn't understand the answer, perhaps. Maybe I think she thought it said something far more offensive than she was actually saying.